Ladies and gentlemen, let
The
me tell you
best
something real simple but
advice
real
on
important.
love.
If he never calls you
Find
first,
someone
never texts you
whose
first, never
presence
takes the first step
feels
to
as
show interest, then you
natural
need to
as
stop
this
stepping so hard in
beautiful
his direction. You
landscape.
don't chase anybody. You don't beg for attention. You don't lose yourself trying to get someone else to find you. You've
Harvey's
got too much value to
advice
be
on
sitting there
love.
wondering why
To
somebody
love
can't do the bare
deeply,
minimum.
you
The
must
bare minimum
first
ain't
be
love. It
open,
ain't effort, and it sure
trust,
ain't
and
respect.
embrace
Sometimes in life you get so
vulnerability.
used to being the one who tries, the one who fixes, the one who reaches out, that you don't even notice when the energy coming back to you is only 10% of what you give. You convince yourself that if you just keep showing up, keep calling, keep texting, keep giving effort, one day the other person will wake up and match it. But the truth is, overgiving is one of the quickest ways to drain your confidence and weaken your sense of worth. When you give and give without receiving anything close to what you pour out, you start questioning yourself instead of questioning the situation. You start wondering what's wrong with you when the real issue is that you're pouring into someone who isn't pouring anything back. You've got to understand something important. Your energy is a form of currency. It has value. Your time, your attention, kindness, none of that is cheap. When you hand it out freely to someone who doesn't reciprocate, you slowly train yourself to accept less than you deserve. And once you start accepting less, you start believing that less is enough. That's not only unfair to you, it keeps you stuck in situations that should have ended a long time ago. Overgiving is not love. Overgiving is not commitment. Overgiving is not loyalty. Overgiving is self-neglect dressed up as effort. The moment you stop overgiving, everything shifts. You start seeing clearly. You start noticing the difference between someone who genuinely cares and someone who only keeps you around because your effort makes their life easier. When you stop being the one who always reaches out first, you get a real picture who is truly invested. And sure, it might feel uncomfortable at first. It might feel strange not to send that good morning message or not to be the one who checks in every time. But that discomfort is part of your growth. It's the space where you learn to value your energy instead of handing it out like it's limitless. You have to protect your energy the same way you protect your phone battery. When your phone hits 10%, you don't start streaming videos or opening 20 apps. You reduce the load because you know the battery is important. With your own emotional energy, you let yourself run down to zero for people who won't even plug you back in. That's why you feel mentally exhausted, drained, confused, and undervalued. You're not tired of caring, you're tired of caring alone. When you stop overgiving, you give yourself permission to breathe again. You allow yourself to receive. You open space for people who respect you, who show effort without being reminded, who communicate without being chased, who value your presence instead of taking advantage of it. Matching energy isn't being petty. It's being fair. It's saying, I'm willing to give. I'm not willing to give everything while receiving nothing. Once you learn to give where energy is matched, your life becomes lighter, your relationships become healthier, and you become stronger. And most importantly, you finally learn that your worth is not measured by how much you give, but by how much you value yourself. There comes a moment when talking, explaining, reminding, and proving your value becomes unnecessary. You reach a point where your silence says more than any message you could type or any call you could make. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not attitude. Silence is understanding. It's the moment you realize that you don't need to force someone to see your worth. You don't need to beg anyone to notice your effort. You don't need to keep showing up for someone who doesn't appreciate the presence you already give. Silence becomes your strength because it reveals the truth that words sometimes hide. When you quiet yourself, you remove the noise that others hide behind. You remove the excuses. You remove the distractions. You remove the comfort they get from knowing you'll always reach out, no matter how little they give in return. Your silence exposes the reality of the situation. When you stop texting first, you see who actually wants to talk to you. When you stop calling first, you see who notices your absence. When you stop initiating everything, you see who shows up without being pushed. Silence doesn't create distance. It reveals distance that already existed. Effort is valuable, but effort without balance becomes strain. When you're always explaining how you feel, always reminding someone to treat you right, always asking for the bare minimum, you put yourself in a position where your voice becomes background noise. People get used to your presence and they stop appreciating the effort behind it. But when you step back and let your silence do the talking, everything changes. Suddenly your voice is missed, your presence is noticed, and your value becomes clear. Silence creates space, and in that space, truth rises to the surface. Silence also heals you because it gives you room to think. When you're constantly giving effort, constantly worried about being ignored, constantly trying to keep a connection alive, your mind gets tired. You start overthinking. You start doubting yourself. But when you step back and let things breathe, you realize that peace feels better than forcing anything. You begin to see that communication should flow naturally, not be dragged out of someone. You learn that you deserve effort that matches yours, not effort that only appears when you demand it. There's power in choosing not to react, not to chase, not to explain. Your silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to stop pouring energy into something one-sided. When someone truly values you, they will feel that silence. They will realize your presence mattered. They will understand that you were giving real effort, not just noise. But if they don't notice, if they don't reach out, then your silence just protected you from staying in a place you were never appreciated. Let your silence speak, not because you want to teach anyone a lesson, but because you finally understand your own worth. When you stop trying so hard, right people will step forward and the wrong ones will fall back. Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. There comes a time when you have to pull your attention away from people who don't value your effort and place it back where it always belonged. On yourself, your goals, your dreams, your growth. When you spend too much time waiting for someone to call you, waiting for a message that never comes, waiting for effort that never shows up, you start losing pieces of yourself without even realizing it. Your energy goes into worrying, your thoughts go into wondering, your days go into waiting, and slowly you drift away from the things that make you strong, confident, and alive. That's why shifting your focus back to yourself is one of the most powerful moves you can make. Your goals don't ignore you. Your dreams don't leave you hanging. Your growth doesn't take you for granted. These are the things that elevate you, protect you, and reward you. But you can't reach the next level of your life if you're stuck replaying the same situation in your mind, hoping someone suddenly wakes up and realizes your worth. Life doesn't move forward when your attention is stuck behind you. Every minute you spend overthinking about someone who can't match your effort is a minute taken away from building the future you deserve. When you shift your focus back to your goals, you regain your power. You remember that you have things to achieve, skills to develop, dreams to chase, and a whole life to build. You start to notice opportunities you were too distracted to see. Your confidence begins to rise again because you're investing your energy into something that actually grows. And the more you grow, clearer everything becomes. You start to understand that anyone who truly belongs in your life will support your growth, not interrupt it. They will add to your energy, not drain it. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop abandoning yourself for them. You stop putting your life on pause, waiting for reactions, replies, or validation. You stop shrinking your potential just because someone else can't see it. When you bring your focus back to your path, your purpose, and your peace, you begin to rebuild the parts of you that got dim when you spent too much time chasing someone else's attention. Growth requires attention. It requires dedication. It requires you to show up for yourself the way you kept showing up for others. When you choose to focus on your goals, you slowly transform into a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of yourself. You start attracting better opportunities, better people, and better experiences. Because the truth is, growth changes everything around you. Once you elevate your mindset, you naturally elevate your surroundings. And the best part is this: when you fully commit to your own growth, the need for external validation fades away. You're no longer affected by who doesn't text first or who doesn't make an effort. You become too busy evolving, too focused on becoming who you're meant to be, too invested in your own journey to rely on someone else's attention for your worth. That's the real power, choosing yourself every day. One thing you learn with time is that anyone can say the right words once in a while. Not everyone can back those words up with real, steady, genuine consistency. Consistency isn't about doing big things. It's about showing up in small, meaningful ways day after day. It's about effort that doesn't disappear when things get inconvenient. It's about actions that match the interest someone claims to have. When someone is truly interested, you don't have to decode mixed signals, guess their intentions, or chase their attention. Their consistency speaks louder than anything they say. You see, inconsistency creates confusion. One day they reply fast, the next day they disappear. One week they seem interested, the next week you're left wondering what happened. When someone is inconsistent, it becomes a mental game you never signed up for. You start checking your phone more than you should. You start questioning whether you said something wrong. But none of that is your burden to carry. Someone who genuinely wants to be in your life will not make you feel like you're competing for their time or proving your value through effort they don't return. Real interest looks like consistency, not occasional attention. If someone truly cares, they will make space for you, not just when it's easy or when they're bored, but because they respect your presence. They don't vanish. They don't keep you guessing. They don't wait for you to always be the one to reach out. They put in effort because they recognize your worth. It doesn't matter how busy life gets. People make time for what truly matters to them. Not hours, not full conversations, not dramatic gestures, just simple, steady effort that shows you matter. Understanding consistency also means understanding your own value. When you know your worth, you stop accepting half effort as full effort. You stop celebrating breadcrumbs. You stop letting someone treat you like an option while you treat them like a priority. You begin to see that inconsistency is not a sign of mystery. It's a sign of disinterest or immaturity. And no amount of overthinking or hoping will change that. People who care show up. People who don't will keep giving you excuses. When you pay attention to consistency instead of words, you protect your heart from unnecessary disappointment. You stop falling for temporary energy. You stop being blinded by potential. You start seeing people for who they really are, not who you hope they might become someday. And this awareness becomes your power. It helps you make better decisions, build healthier relationships, and walk away from situations that drain your spirit. Consistency is the truth. It's the real measure of interest. Not the good morning messages once a week, not the sudden bursts of attention, not the promises without follow through. It's the everyday effort, the small actions, the steady presence. When someone wants you in their life, they won't leave you wondering. They'll make it clear through how they show up again and again. And once you understand that, you'll never settle for inconsistency again, because you finally see that your heart deserves reliability, not uncertainty. There comes a point in every situation where you have to choose yourself, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. When you keep giving more effort than you receive, when you keep waiting for someone to show up the way you show up for them, when you keep sacrificing your emotional energy just to keep a connection alive, you slowly begin to lose your own peace. And peace is something you cannot trade. Peace is not just silence or distance. Peace is clarity, balance, and emotional strength. Protecting your peace means protecting your mind, your heart, and your confidence. And sometimes, to do that, you have to pull back. Pulling back doesn't mean you're being cold. It doesn't mean you're playing games. It doesn't mean you're trying to teach anyone a lesson. Pulling back means you finally realize that your emotional well-being is more important than forcing someone to care. When you constantly chase, you forget your own worth. You forget how powerful you are. You forget that you deserve mutual effort. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve balance. And when someone's inconsistency begins affecting your confidence, stepping back becomes a necessity, not an option. People often confuse pulling back with giving up, but the truth is, it's actually the opposite. It's choosing not to give up on yourself. When you pull back, you stop allowing someone else's behavior to control your emotions. You stop letting someone's silence dictate your mood. You stop waiting by the phone hoping for the bare minimum. Instead, you take your power back. You shift your energy from worrying about someone else's actions to focusing on your own peace. Protecting your peace also protects your confidence, because nothing damages confidence like being constantly ignored or undervalued. When you keep showing up for someone who rarely shows up for you, you train your mind to believe that your presence isn't enough. You start doubting your worth. You start asking questions that don't belong to you. Questions like, why am I not good enough? Or, what did I do wrong? But the reality is, their inconsistency is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their priorities. Pulling back gives you space to see things clearly. When you're always the one reaching out, you can't see the real picture. But when you step back, their effort, or lack of effort, becomes obvious. You can finally observe whether they actually want to be in your life, or whether they were just comfortable because you did all the work. This clarity gives you emotional protection because it stops you from investing energy into something that isn't growing. Pulling back also restores your inner strength. When you reclaim your peace, you start finding joy in your own life again. You stop overthinking. You stop analyzing every text. You stop waiting for validation from someone who barely notices your effort. You begin to reconnect with yourself, goals, your plans, your purpose. This shift makes you stronger. It reminds you that you are whole on your own. It reminds you that your confidence doesn't depend on someone else's attention. And as you protect your peace, something amazing happens. Your worth becomes clearer to you. You begin to understand what you deserve. You begin to set boundaries. You begin to demand respect not through your words, but through your actions. You stop settling for emotional crumbs. You stop chasing temporary attention. You stop allowing your peace to be disturbed just because someone can't be consistent. Pulling back is not abandonment. It is alignment. It is choosing yourself, honoring yourself, and protecting the most important parts of you. When you protect your peace, your confidence grows. your energy becomes healthier, and your life begins to attract people who recognize your value instead of draining it. One of the biggest lessons life